Hey folks, Joe Bongiovanni here again, Kettle Pond Institute for Debt-Free Money, debt-free money being the solution to the problems that we're going to talk about today. And as I had said in my introduction, this is my take on a talk that I might have given at the American Monetary Institute's conference titled Fixing the Broken Money System, Fixing Our Broken Money System. Very important distinction. Whose money system is it anyway? So I'm going to try to address, fixing the broken money system and how debt-based money causes wealth concentration. And wealth concentration, I'm afraid it's just become just a little bit more than the weather. That is to say that everybody talks about it. Nobody seems to know what's causing it, what really causes it, and very few people have solutions. I was very fortunate to be able to attend the Levy Institute Ford Foundation's annual Minsky Conference back in April at the Ford Foundation in Manhattan. And at that conference, excuse me, over the course of the 3 days of the conference, there were 4 separate panels involving 9 speakers and 2 speakers, individuals who spoke in terms of their, including one from the Fed, by the way, which was Sarah Bloom Raskin, who's a Fed governor and who I think we're going to hear a lot about. But my main point was that she was also. What's the subject? The subject is inequality. Having that many speakers over a 3-day period and that many panels over that 3-day period, with the subject being inequality, being the way economists describe the results of income distortions and wealth concentrations that have become, well, they are egregious, to our social order, is what they really are. So much so that, that was kind of the theme of the whole conference. So the esteemed gathering at the Ford Foundation with the Levy Economics Institute, everybody's talking about wealth concentration. But not one person talked about it causally, and not one person talked about solving the problem of wealth concentration. So how big of a problem is it? The only thing I can tell you is that since the Levy Institute's conference, back in April, the situation has either only gotten worse or the reporting on it has gotten better, in the sense that the record profits of the large bank corporations are reported in for the first quarter. Excuse me. Sorry for my allergy, but still, very few people are talking about why it is the way that it is. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Not how finally we are measuring the results of tons of research, with regard to wealth inequality and income inequality, large portions of the research being funded by those that are causing the same wealth and income inequality through their grants and support of public education, higher public education institutions. But I want to talk about it within the context of one thing that should be kind of painfully obvious to anybody who would take a minute to think about the fact that we have a debt-based system of money is one of the causes of the wealth concentration, honest to goodness, crisis. Okay. Now, having said that, what I would like to do is to just talk a little bit about my overall presentation here. Debt-based money issuance. What does that involve? Well, basically what it involves is the fact that you get access to money these days by being creditworthy. Okay? You have a debt-based money issuance. We only issue money when we issue debt, and we only issue that debt-based money to the creditworthy. Okay? You can kind of say the gist of it is that whoever needs it the most gets it last and pays the most for it. I'm going to talk about one of the people who I think has best laid out exactly how the system of debt-based money concentrates wealth, Dr. Bernard Senf. He's professor emeritus at the Berlin School of Economics. And he shows in his analysis, in his first English language lecture that he's done on the subject of money, how there is a systemic gravitation, okay, to the 1%. And now there should be some question as to whether that's true. And I definitely agree there should be. And after the discussion is had, you will see that it is true. And then, once it is true, what are we going to do about it? And I want to contrast that debt-based system of money and the result being wealth concentration with my, I guess I'm going to call him, kind of my guru of money, which is Dr. Frederick Soddy. Dr. Frederick Soddy wrote many books, being a Nobel Prize winner, but not in economics. But he wrote a book called The Role of Money. And when you get digesting the entire subject matter of the role of money, what it comes down to is that the role of money is to distribute wealth. That is the role of money in an economic democracy, is to distribute the wealth that is created by labor and energy. Well, that's labor, energy, resources, that's what makes wealth, and the distribution of the wealth that's being created is the role of money in an economic democracy. So, we have distribution of wealth versus concentration of wealth, and we need to have an equitable distribution of our national wealth. And then to finally say that the separation of money issuance from banking is the entire story of how to get over to the side of the equitable distribution of money. Excuse me. Money being issued through government payments for services. That's how all new money would come into existence. Of course, we're going to have to straighten out the monetary system being what it is. Now, one of the things that I was going to talk about is the staggering thought of Robert J. Hemphill, who was an Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank economist in the 1930s. And he made this staggering thought commentary, which to me is pretty much wraps up the entire problem of having a debt-based system of money. And it relates very well to the situation that we have today with regard to austerity being the solution when we have too much debt. Okay? I'm going to quote Robert Hemphill's statement here. If all the bank loans were paid, no one could have a bank deposit, and there would not be a dollar of coin or currency in circulation. This is a staggering thought. We are completely dependent upon the commercial banks. Someone has to borrow every dollar we have in circulation, cash or credit. If the banks create ample synthetic money, we are prosperous. If not, we starve. We are absolutely without a permanent money system. This is the most important subject intelligent persons can investigate and reflect upon. Now, so said Dr. Hemphill, Robert Hemphill, again, the chief economist, the credit officer of the Atlanta Fed, whose role is to determine, the creditworthiness basically of the banks. So I want to talk now about the debt-based money issuance system. It is what I call a systemic unleveling of the playing field on which the national economy is played out. Debt-based money issuance is a systemic unleveling of the playing field. It contributes to the playing field being tilted in favor of those who issue the money. The prosperity that every person, in terms of their comfort and their happiness, seeks is only available to the most creditworthy. And what's happening today is a shrinking of the base, a shrinking of the lower moderate income to the middle income up to the highest income. Okay? So prosperity goes to the fewer and fewer and fewer, and where it comes from is from the many and the many and the many. And the 99% are in the 1%. So again, whoever needs it the most, now that would be credit now we're talking about. Whoever needs it most gets it last. And they pay the most to use it when they do get it. So now I want to just talk for a minute here now about how the debt money system concentrates wealth. And I'm going to give my 2 cents worth on it, but I really want to refer everybody to take the time to inform yourselves about the work of Dr. Bernard Senft, again, Professor Emeritus of the Berlin School. Now, of course, right here I'm going to throw in a copy of my slide, which has the Blip TV file number for Dr. Senft's English language lecture, which is 4111596. And the title of his lecture was The Deeper Roots of the World Financial Crisis. And I'm going to give you my 2 cents on it, okay? Now, which is that in a debt-based monetary system, okay, those who are able to have access to money, when now we say money, we mean credit. And so when we say credit, we say the issuance of the credit by the lender is a function of what? Ability to pay by the borrower, meaning the more wealthy the borrower is, the more access that they have to the monetary credits, okay, that are created with by issuing debt-based money. So we have a system where all money over time is issued to the wealthier and the wealthier, okay, as a debt. And the fact that it's issued as a debt for the issuer, okay, means that over time there is a return, the highest return to the issuer of the money. The highest return to the issuer of the money from the first user of the money. That is really the mechanical tool by which wealth gets concentrated. You have wealth, you have access to debt-based money, you can return a higher, make a higher return to the people that are lending it, and for yourself, of course. But the point being that there's a natural tendency for the credit to go to the most creditworthy, being the most wealthy, being those in control of themselves of the most monetary assets, and on the other side, okay, a diminishing, a lessening, okay, a pulling back of the availability of credit to those, again, who need it most, okay, to those who can be forced to get it from more expensive methods, and that's primarily from credit cards. And that is to say that the issuance of the credit card took place against the issuance of the wages, the lack of the issuance of the wages, I should say, and that is what has caused the cost of credit by debt issuance to go higher to the least able to afford it. Therefore, a welling from the people who can least afford it of their interest payments up to the issuers of the money, and then to the point where the only thing that the people that are doing up there, the financialistas, are issuing money to themselves. That is to say, they're creating new forms of monetary assets on which to consume, through which to consume the credit that's available in society. And we call that financialization. And we have seen how finance itself has grown as a huge share of the economy. And what happens there? You know, the part that doesn't go into investment in production and the creation of wages and jobs, that part that doesn't happen, and therefore the wages contributing to the ability of those people to consume their needs, gets reversed. You know, they don't get the money that they need to consume their needs. That's how they formed the 99%. That's how the 90 became the 92 and the 94 and the 95 and the 99, is because the wages didn't go to the wage earning part of the population. Rather, money was used, issuing it as a debt and issuing it to the most creditworthy with the highest rate of return. And that mechanical aspect of the money issuance system is what causes wealth to be concentrated in the highest. Now, one of the things that I want to point out is that when a lot of people learn about the fact of wealth concentration, let's say income disparity and wealth concentration, there's a lack of income, okay, and because there's a lack of income, there's a lack of wealth accumulation. And when people learn about that, they tend to say, well, what we need to do is to tax the money back. We need to tax the money back. They've earned it. You could say surreptitiously. I would say immorally, and in a kind of a corrupted kind of a manner in terms of our monetary system. But they've done that, and now they have the wealth. And what we really need to do is to tax it back. Now, this is what I want to say about that. Yeah, you can do that. And you can do that either by itself and think that that's going to solve the problem, or you can do it in conjunction with another important action. And rather than taxing back the money from the people who control it, to taking back the system of money, to taking back the monetary system. And that's what needs to happen. Because if you just take back the money through taxation, I can only guarantee you that the corruption that is available to the people that issue the money is going to ensure that whatever regulation you put in place is going to be deregulated, and the grandkids are going to be here doing all this all over again. So the fact of the matter is that once you recognize that there is a systemic cause to wealth concentration, and the real truth behind the systemic cause to the wealth concentration is the debt-based issuance of money, that is the highest systemic cause. There are others, of course, but that's the highest one. That's the quintessential one. That's the one by which the aristocracy, maintains itself. That's why Mr. Rothschild made that statement. Permit me to issue the nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws. You can't just take back the money. You have to take back the money system. In his lecture, Dr. Senf identifies the crises that are caused by debt-based money. And again, you really should, see Dr. Senf's presentation. Again, it's his only English language presentation. It's actually 2 years old now. It'll be 3 years old soon. So we say, what are the crises that are caused? Well, there's first of all the economic crisis, okay? The economic crisis really is what we're looking at today, unemployment being high, resources laying idle, those are in the terms of the macroeconomy, those are the kind of things that happen. But in terms of socially with relate to the economy, the fact is that unemployment is not just a statistic. It means that people have no jobs. It means that people have no money. It means that people have no benefits, because in this country especially, your benefits go with your job. And as a result, people have no hope. And that has a tremendous social impact, a tremendous impact on society that is a crisis. It's a real crisis. Then there's the environmental crisis. Well, basically, the environmental crisis really boils down to this: sustainability, which we have to eventually bring into our use of resources, okay, natural resources, environmental resources, excuse me, is unaffordable. It's unaffordable. You want to go to Congress and you want to try to get a law passed to protect, the environment from, from whatever, from fossil fuel, combustion gases and stuff like that. I'm sorry, that we would like to do that, but we can't afford to. Okay, and the reason that we can't afford to is that it's not profitable. The monetary system is not here to distribute the wealth. The monetary system is here to concentrate the wealth. And if you're proposing something that is going to go against that, then it's not affordable. Then there's the crises at the states, okay? And quite frankly, this is one of the worst and most damaging to our society, because the states cannot meet their budgets. The states gave up their money creation powers. They can only rely on the money issuance powers of the federal government. The federal government has given over the money issuance powers to the private banks, who are using the debt-based system to concentrate the wealth of, I don't want to just say just the private bankers, because some of my best friends are bankers, but to the cadre of society that are operating that financial sector. So we have no budgets there. We lose our services. We lose our police services. Lose our fire services. Our fire services are going to get to be user feed. No, if you paid your fee, well, don't call us if you have a fire. Or no ambulance service. No whatever. Excuse me. And so then what we lose from that is whatever the state can bring to us in terms of our well-being at that level. We don't have that. And all of those other crises, result in a human crisis, the crisis of humanity, with our depression, our frustration, our inability, quite frankly, to figure out how to get from here to where we need to be in terms of the pursuit of happiness. Excuse me. So, and then what I want to do is just take a minute. I'm just going to sort of repeat what I said about people need to have an understanding about the fact that there's another way of doing this. Okay? That debt-free money is a real way of doing it. And Dr. Frederick Soddy, who wrote The Role of Money, and again amongst his many books, talks in that book. And so again, yeah, is there homework here? Yeah, the role of money is part of the homework here. Okay? And Dr. Senf is part of the homework here. I can only tell you what I've learned. Most of what I learned from my father, but a lot of what I've learned lately is from the work of and especially The Role of Money and Frederick Soddy. My dad said, if you're going to read anybody about money, read Frederick Soddy, because he is the most knowledgeable person with regard to what money really is. So we have to try to find the way to achieve Soddy's proper role for the national system of money. And we can only do that through the recognition that what we have is a national system of money. Okay? That we, the people, own the monetary system. We own it. It's ours. We can change it in any way that we want, and we need to change it so that we can have an equitable distribution of wealth being the result of the monetary system functioning as it properly should. Say the proper role of money, so that we get distribution of wealth and not concentration. And so that brings us to, again, Soddy's. This is Soddy's thing, Frederick Soddy, his work was picked up by Henry Simons and all of the early Chicago school people who proposed the Chicago Plan for reforming the monetary system to FDR, to Franklin Roosevelt, as the Chicago Plan for Monetary Reform. A bill was actually introduced in the Congress at that time called the Monetary Control Act of 1934. It was in both the House and the Senate, but it got waylaid. and it got waylaid primarily because of the what they call the Banking Reform Acts, the Money and Banking Reform Acts, where they put in Glass-Steagall, where they put in, various other methods and regulations to try to control the excesses of the banking industry. But what they didn't do was they tried to separate the front bank, which is the bank that takes your deposits, from the back bank, the bank that does the investments and etc. by through the Glass-Steagall Act, but they didn't separate money issuance, the issuance of the money, from the banking, credit, and debt issuance function of the bank. Banking, credit, debt issuance, those are all banking functions. Money issuance is a governmental function. Money issuance without issuing debt is the route to achieving Saudi's distribution of wealth. And we're very fortunate because, as the American Monetary Institute has brought forward their American Monetary Act, on which Kucinich's H.R. 2990, the National Emergency Employment Defense Act, was modeled, and the Kucinich bill includes everything that Frederick Soddy, Henry Simons, the Chicago School, Irving Fisher, the man who Milton Friedman called the greatest monetary economist of the last century. And don't laugh because I mentioned Milton Friedman, because Milton Friedman himself was a supporter of this type of having a sovereign fiat money system with issuance by the government. That's hard to believe, him being a free marketer. But being a free marketer, what he recognized was you can't have free markets without the level playing field. You can't have the free markets without the level playing field. Okay? You can't have totally free enterprise without the level playing field. So Milton Friedman believed in it. Okay? Milton Friedman supported this completely. And his praise for Irving Fisher was because Irving Fisher in his 100% money proposals came out with it. So basically, that's the story. We need to get rid of the systemic cause of wealth concentration. Wealth concentration comes from debt money issuance. Debt money issuance going to the most credit-worthy being the people that basically issue the money themselves. That's why financialization became its own great bubble, because they issued the money to themselves. Then they created monetary assets that serve as assets around which money gets used, and they just kept taking more and more and more and more and more money and more profits and more wealth and more income to the fewer and the fewer and the fewer. That's how it's done. And we need to do something about it, and there is a way to do something about it, and that is with getting the Kucinich bill back up on the table, so that we, the people, the 99%, can have a money system that works for us. So that's it, folks. That was going to be my talk. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this up into a video or two, but in the meantime, thanks very much for listening, and it would have been a lot better on the stage. Thank you.